Well, welcome everybody. We are excited, I know I am, to talk about the mission trips, some of them. We're going to talk about 6 tonight. And we're not going to have a ton of time to talk about each one of the trips, but we're very excited to talk about what the Lord has done on some of our international trips, as well as some of the missions right here in the Tulsa area. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into it. We're going to each go through one round of talking about what the mission is, and then we'll follow that up with what's going on in the future, what's to come in that ministry. So go ahead, Scott.
Okay, I'm going to talk to you about Latvia. Latvia is one of the 3 Baltic nations. It's up along the Baltic Sea. If you go to Moscow and turn left and go a few hours, you'll run into Latvia. That helps people understand where it is. Where we go is as far north as Sitka, Alaska, but was occupied by the Soviets until technically 1991, really more so like 1993. So it is very much a unique culture. It has its Latvian heritage, a lot of Swedish heritage, but then a lot of Russian influence. So this year we took a team, there were 6 of us, who went to a smaller town called Liepāja. Latvia's capital is Riga, but Liepāja is the town where we spend most of our time. We've been involved with the church there since May of 2017. Excuse me. So I polled our team this year to ask them to answer some of these questions and give their impression about what we did there this year and the future of our mission there. To give you a little history, in May of 2017, with the Oklahoma Baptists, we went to Latvia to explore a possible partnership. We were partnered initially with the largest Baptist church in the country, Mateja Church in Riga. We quickly discerned that they did not really need a development partnership. They were just looking for kind of American friends. On our second trip there, we arranged to visit this young pastor that I had met at a lunch, visit his church in Liepāja. When we were there, they had really barely gotten started. They'd had a couple meetings, and we have been with them from the beginning. After our first meeting there, Nikki Boyd, who was with us at the time, was the first to say as we were leaving, "This is the reason we're in this country." It was very clear, this pastor's vision, without ever having met us or knowing anything about Evergreen Church, as he shared his vision for structure and ministry, it was Evergreen in Latvia. So that was a clear partnership opportunity for us. So over the years, we've gone several trips now. I've been 9 times, Martha's been 8. We are focusing on developing leaders primarily. We did do one student ministry trip in spring of 2019, where we were in all of the schools in the town, sharing about American lives, and of course then everybody included their faith, their participation in church. That was a great week. We led youth rallies, but that was a unique trip. We've also done a summer camp for the students, but our main trips that we do in October, this year was September, is to meet with and develop leaders. So we've met with student ministry leaders. They divide their students into 2 groups: teens, which are 12 to 14, and youth from 15 up to about 19 or so. We've been through 2 reorganizations of that ministry with them. This year also we focused on young adult ministry. So for working with students, we had Taylor Olinghouse and we had Josh Randall, who both have student ministry experience and are still pretty young themselves. Then Kiva and Matt O'Mealy were with us to discuss with their leaders about young adult ministry. They have a lot of young adult ministry experience, and then also church planting experience, because while we were there, we got to spend one Sunday morning with a couple that in a nearby town called Kuldiga, which is one of the coolest medieval towns you could ever see. And they were trying to start a church there. So we met with them in their yard. I got this in Latvia. It's been 4 weeks. I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. We spent the morning with them in their yard discussing their vision of starting a home Bible study which could grow into a church plant. By the time we finished that morning meeting, they were determined, we're going to do this next week. And sure enough, our first Sunday back, which was September 15th, they had their first in-home church meeting, and they moved into another building on their property, a larger one, so they could involve more people. It'll be difficult for them to find a place to meet outside their home, but they're trusting that God will provide that for them. One of the things that has made this relationship successful, I believe, is us pouring into the pastor and his wife, pouring into their family. In fact, Martha made one emergency trip by herself one Easter to surprise them, and then spent a week with them as individuals and as a couple, really kind of doing her best to strengthen them, and it worked. And they are still functioning as a married couple, leading a church which is now averaging about 150 to 175. And they are looking for ways to grow. They are evangelistic within their community. When we go, we don't focus, as I said, on evangelistic outreach because they have had way too much what they might refer to as hit-and-run evangelism in their town. So they prefer to have us come and help develop leaders who then can be indigenous leaders and carry that out throughout the year. They border Russia, Belarus, Estonia to the north, Lithuania to the south. So they are surrounded by some difficult countries, difficult people, and that, of course, is part of their culture. So striking a conversation with somebody to bring up the gospel, yes, we can do it anytime, anywhere, but they find it to be much more effective if they can develop relationship, have somebody introduce them, a common friend, something. So they prefer to do it that way. One of the things about our time in Latvia is God has always put the right teams together every time we've gone, and our combined experiences as teams have always come together to provide what they need for their leadership in the moment. Latvian people are, as you might expect from a Northern Eastern European, they can be rather stoic. So when we finish a meeting and they say, "You've given us much to think about," that's success. And we had that this time. Another thing is that they are extremely grateful for what Evergreen has invested in them. Materials of ours they've translated and used. They have been able to use the Reengage marriage enrichment material. Then there have been many of you over the years who have invested financially to help them do things. They're very grateful for it. Now, as far as what it looks like moving forward, they are still a young church, 7.5 years old. They're eager to grow. They have moved from place to place to place. They are now in a church building sharing with another Baptist church. That church meets in the morning. Our sister church meets in the afternoon. The building is well over 100 years old, 120 years old. They're making improvements, which they say belong now to that building, whether they stay there or not. They will need their own space eventually. It's a big challenge. Money is always an issue. People are not high earners in Latvia. The cost of living might be lower, but so are the incomes. They've had some grants from European Baptist Union. They've had some awards given by organizations that help them make improvements to the building, but they are in need of space, and that is an ongoing thing for them. So we'll keep praying with them and working with them to help make the most of the space they have available. They're really hungry for encouragement. We provide that. We're in contact with them on a regular basis electronically. You know, the internet has made the world a small place. So we can encourage them regularly. We can send materials. We can answer questions. They have so little in their language available to them. So anything we can send and we can help pay for translation, things like that, they're very, very grateful. They are developing small groups, so we had good conversations with them about that this time and about developing a bench of leaders that you can send out into additional small groups. They did not have a vision for that, for developing the leadership well, so that's one of the things that they're working on now. the ministry to young adults, as far as that moving forward, they have changed their focus from what was going to be a monthly get-together to a much more regular enrichment, Bible teaching and worship, growth time, and then incorporating social aspect as well. I don't know if we're not on the pictures right now. We do have a picture of Matt and Kiva teaching and speaking to that group. So as far as the church's involvement moving forward, we do intend to continue making trips. We usually go in October around their birthday time. They like us to come for their church birthday. That year, we had a schedule conflict for that. The ways that you can, as a church, always contribute. Remember, you can always pray, send, and go. Now, the Latvia trips are smaller. We choose the teams pretty specifically based on what they have asked us to provide on that particular trip. But there's certainly no lack of anything within faith life today. There's always something for you to give to. So, of course, for the Latvia trip, you can always give to the Latvia church. You can help provide money to send people on trips. They are a grateful people. Now, we've learned they don't always express gratitude the way we're accustomed to it, but they let us know they're very grateful for what we bring, what we provide, support we have in the past provided for the pastor and his wife. They have sent ministry leaders here. We'll have opportunities to help them get here for other things in the future. They came for Kidmin Expo and Worship Launch this last year. 7 of them came. We'll have opportunities to do that again. But email me, and I'll answer any other questions you might have about the Latvia mission.
I'm here to talk to you about a community here in Tulsa, very close to our church, and it is called River Bend. And it's a great opportunity for everybody to come and see what the Lord is doing there. If you can't go out of the country, this is a very good opportunity for you to come and do missions here. River Bend is around 131st and Memorial, and there is people, American people and Spanish-speaking people. We can say that most of the people that we talk to are Hispanic people, and but like I said, there is American people too that they come, and we have the opportunity to share with them too. So how did Evergreen get there? It was through the youth group that they were doing missions, and somehow they got in touch with the ministry that was working there already doing missions, and this ministry is mobile mission ministry. So Evergreen got really to work in this community, that this ministry, mobile mission ministry, step aside and let Evergreen take over the mission there. So we are the main church working in this community. And what is the mission? What is Evergreen missions there? It's simply take the gospel to the people who do not know it. How are we doing it? We have different activities that we do there. It's been, a lot of work, but it is very beautiful to see how God worked in the life of these people in this community. We have the youth group. They have monthly on a Sunday what they call Sunday in the Park. They come and they cook hamburgers, hot dogs. They have drinks for the people there. They have games for the kids. We have different kind of things going on there on a Sunday, but the main thing is that we have time to share the gospel or a Bible story with the people that is there. Another thing that we do there is the Christmas tree angel. Before, when Christmas is getting close, we hand out flyers to the residents of this community, and they fill out these flyers with the information of the kids, their kids, and what their kids would like to have for Christmas. So then we put up a Christmas tree here in the church, and the beautiful family of Evergreen always take these angels and buy the gifts for these kids. Now, when we give them the gifts, the parents come here, and they, when they come to pick up the gifts, they have the opportunity to wrap the gifts here, and we help them. While we're doing that, guess what's happening? We're sharing the Christmas story. Why are we celebrating Christmas? We don't want them just to come and get the gifts. We want them to know why is it that we celebrate Christmas. Why did Jesus has to be born? So it's what happens. Another thing we do there is, well, let me tell you, exactly I don't know when this happened, but Evergreen got the opportunity to buy a mobile home there. Is where we do all these activities that we do there. We call it the community center, and there we have every month on a Thursday night, there is a meal that is prepared, and we invite the residents to come and have dinner with us. And the same thing happens. There we go again with the gospel of salvation. You know, we have the opportunity to sit with people that is eating there. While they are eating, we tell them what we need to tell them, what they need to know. And always, God is in charge of opening the conversations. You don't even have to ask them, would you like me to share my story with you? No. At least is what it happens with me. God always starts everything. I don't have to do anything. I just have to be ready there and say, okay, here I go. So another thing that we are doing, and this is something that we started last year, is ESL classes. Last year we had 2 days a week English classes for the people there. And we had between 10 and 15 students every class. This year we're having 3 days a week classes. So we increased 1 day, and we still have about the same amount of students every class. And the class, you know, English is just something to bring the people to the community center. And teaching the English, guess what we use? The Bible. Yes, that's the main reason we are there. We are not there to entertain anybody. We're there to tell these people, this is who God is, this is who Jesus is, and this is what he did for you. You need Jesus as much as I need him. So, you know, we tell them what is the way for salvation. There is not many ways, there is only one, and that's Jesus Christ. So that's what we're doing there. And let me tell you, one of the testimonies that we had last year, this community is not only people from that community that we reached. Somehow the Lord is bringing people from other parts of the city to the English classes, and we are reaching out to that people too with the message of salvation. So last year we had 3 ladies coming from Admiral and over there. So these ladies, they are Catholic people. Unfortunately, at least in Mexico, the area that I am from, we are not encouraged to read the Bible. So that was the case with them. And, you know, they came the whole year, and maybe like probably 2 months before the end of the school year, one of the ladies got to share with us that she really got interested in reading the Bible. She started reading the Bible, and she said, I wanted to know if what you were teaching us, it was in the Bible. And yes, there is, that is in the Bible, what you're teaching us. So that is for us something great, because somebody who is not accustomed to read the Bible, and then she starts reading the Bible, that is great. It is a new habit for that person. And who knows how many more people that person is going to affect to do the same thing. So that gives us you know, to me, it makes me feel like full of energy to do this and continue to do it. So this is what is going on. It's been going on in Evergreen. Another thing that happened recently out of there is that, I don't know how many of you know, but we have a Sunday school class in Spanish. This is the question that I use to myself. When I speak to people and I share the gospel, Spanish people, and they accept Jesus Christ, where do I send them? Where is the place that I can feel confidence that they're going to be fed with the Word of God, the truth? And so now I have a place where to tell them to go. So that's great. Where are we going with all this? Well, what I just told you is what we're doing is what we're planning to do. What we see is, you know, the Sunday school already started. We see with our faith, and we pray, and our desire is that one day we can have a church that really teaches the truth, like Pastor Michael does here in Evergreen. Because I do not know all the churches in Tulsa, Spanish-speaking churches. But the ones that I know they don't preach the truth completely. Half and half is not the truth. So for us, our desire is to have a church that teaches the truth, and these people that is coming here, they can grow, they can believe the truth, receive the truth, grow, and reproduce what God will do in their lives. That's what we see, and that's what we're going for.
That's hard to follow. So I'm Pastor Taylor. I am talking to you about the Brazil mission trip. It's kind of a joke because Justin has been there way more times than I have, so he'd probably be the better suited person. But I've actually only gotten to go the last 2 years, but it has been an amazing trip. We're in the southern part of the country. Brazil is obviously a huge country. We're in the southernmost part and near Sao Paulo, kind of that region. And if you've ever met Mario and Renata Gomes, they lived here and they were members for a long time. That's our Brazilian kind of host team that's down. And it's kind of cool because they have that Evergreen connection. They were Evergreen members, and that's where they're from. And so we obviously have that like family connection with them. And then if you don't know, their son Victor actually has been up here with us for the last several years going to school, and he's a part of our young adult and college program. So I get to spend a lot of time with him. Last year, I got to go to the mission trip, and he went with us, and it was like seeing him in his hometown with his family, which was crazy because my context of him is all here. But that trip is really become really special to me just in 2 years of going. There's two elements essentially to that trip. One element is highly evangelistic, and we have this really great opportunity just by the virtue of being Americans. And I know this happens on other mission trips, but it's so pronounced in this mission trip, which is that we have a connection in Brazil that gets us into a bunch of elementary and high schools. And essentially, they will just shut down classes and shut down schools for however much time for us to come in and talk to the students and just do a presentation just because we're Americans. And that's it. I mean, it's the Lord opening a door on like one of what really is just a trivial thing. And so we go down and we get to go into these schools and we do this presentation. It has some magic tricks. It has, if you've ever heard Emilio tell the story of George, it's a great track that he actually wrote, and it's in, I don't know, a crazy amount of languages at this point. But he does the story of George, which is a gospel presentation. Justin does a magic trick with boxes that has a gospel presentation in it. And then at the end, we do like a Q&A. We just sit and let the students ask us questions. But of course, we're in like Marechal, which is not like a tourist area. And so the kids always ask, they're like, why are you here? Like, why did Americans come all the way to this town? And it's such a perfect opportunity to just say, we're here because we love Jesus Christ and we wanted to come tell you about him. And so you get 3, 4, 5 opportunities to share the gospel with, elementary school kids, high school kids. You couldn't make it 10 seconds in a school here before they'd be like, you want to tell us about what? Get out. Like, I don't want to talk to you. So it's just a really amazing opportunity. We get to share the gospel with hundreds of kids. Plus, they give away the tracts in Portuguese, and they take those home, and their parents read them. And so it's just a really great opportunity to spread the gospel. They do speak Portuguese. I hear if you're fluent in Spanish, you can pick up some of it. The Brazilians will tell you it's like one of the hardest languages to learn, which is crazy. They say it's harder than learning English, and it's their native language. So that's wild. The other aspect of the trip is really pouring into the churches. It is it's that we go and we have this great connection with these believers. I want to tell you guys something. I think I take it for granted how much I share the same spirit with believers, because we kind of get used to it, I think, and when we're around each other, and we don't really recognize how special it is. And if you want to know how special it is, go on literally any of these mission trips and watch as you meet a believer with a huge language barrier. They don't speak your language and you don't speak theirs, and somehow you are brothers, you are sisters, you fall in love with that person that you can barely even communicate with, and you have something with them that is quite literally supernatural. It is the coolest experience. Gian is one of our contacts down there. He speaks English fine, but I just fell in love with him so quickly, and I thought there's no explanation for that. There's no explanation for that except that we share the same spirit. And so what we do is we go into these churches and we just pour into them. We just encourage them and love on them, and we answer questions, because again, even in the churches, they want to ask us questions because we're Americans, and so they go, well, what's American church like, and what are you guys doing? And even for them, it's even encouraging because we see the gospel moving so much in Brazil that we get to go, hey, right now you guys are doing better than we are. Like the gospel's moving so much in your country. Don't miss it, because we're fighting kind of an uphill battle where Americans, we live in the Bible, but everybody just thinks they're a Christian here, right? So you have to like undo something before you can even make progress. And they are making an impact. They're having people get saved every service. And then when we come in, we get to see God use us through a translator, and all of a sudden people are responding, and people are accepting calls to missions and calls to ministry. And it is a life-changing experience. And when I say that is just missions, right? That's not just the Brazil mission. That's just missions. I tell people, like, God doesn't need you for a mission trip, but if you will be obedient to go, He'll use that mission trip to change you. You're the one that, I didn't know this when I first went to Brazil, but I was the one that got edified and sanctified. I was the one that came back different, And I don't know how much I helped the Brazilians, but I know that I got a lot on that trip. Do you want me to talk about, do you want me to wait, or do you want me to talk about what we're doing next? Just do it all. Okay. So here's the cool thing that happened. The first year we went, we largely did the gospel presentations in the schools like all day, and then in the evenings we would go spend time with the churches. So at the end of that trip, I went to Mario and Justin, and I said, listen, I will come on this trip and I will do whatever you tell me to do. But I just wanted to say that the thing that filled me up the most was pouring into the churches. That was the part that, for me, with my spiritual gifts, and the part that really I felt my heart gravitate towards, that was the part that filled me up. And I said, so if we can do even more of that next time, I'm in. Well, they took that, and this last year we had 2 teams. And so we had a team that almost exclusively did the school presentations. Justin led that team, and they went to schools all day, every day. They did, they shared the gospel with literally hundreds, maybe even in the thousands of kids. It was awesome. And then my team, which was led by Emilio, we got to go to the churches like all day, every day, and just pour into them and meet with leaders and meet with congregations and just go to Bible studies and go to their life groups and go to all their things. And so then we had the brilliant idea, and I don't know how the planning for this is coming along, so I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but there's like 4 towns that we go to, and the goal was, okay, what if we could have a team for every town. And every one of those 4 towns, that way your team goes and you're just in that one city the entire time. You're sharing the gospel, you're meeting with the churches, but your team is responsible for the partnership with that church. And I think part of what prompted that idea is on the last day, we went to, what was the last city that we went to with the church this year? That smaller church.
The one in Iguazu?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, not the prayer house, the one before that. With the one pastor.
Mondo Novo.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that pastor, we got one night with him, and it was so awesome. And I was like, I feel like we missed out on being here with this guy this whole time, like with this church. And then that spawned the idea of like, why don't we have a team just here with this church, and a team in Coscoville, and a team in Marshall, and just a team in every area with each of these churches. And so it's like Scott said on the Latvia trip, it is a trip where we cultivate the teams based on need, really, that what the churches are looking for. So we kind of go around and recruit people for it. But it's exciting to see how it's already expanding. You know, how many years has Emilio been? Over 20. Yeah, Emilio's been like 20 years.
And the college students have been such a huge part of it.
Yeah, right. And we're bringing young adults, we're bringing college students. Emilio has been so many years, but I know things got shut down for COVID, and just since COVID, the team has doubled and maybe even will quadruple from my first year. So it is expanding, it's growing. Like Scott said, there's so many ways that you can get involved. Obviously, prayer. Like prayer is, if you don't do it, like let me rephrase that actually. Let's put it this way. You can do a lot of things and none of it really matters if you're not praying. So the most important thing, the most impactful thing you can do for missions is pray. And that is what makes a difference. And then on top of that, you can give, you can help us with the expenses of the trip, and then also you can mobilize people. I mean, even if you can't go, you can be the person who pushes somebody else and says, "Hey, you should be a part of missions. You should go. You know, you're ready." Because some people just don't go because they're scared. They're just scared. I had no idea what I was getting into that first year. I went and I was like, well, that settles it. This was a silly thing to be scared of. I'm going to every mission trip I can go to now. Like, it doesn't even matter. So anyway, that's my whole thing. I would just encourage you, get involved in missions in whatever way you can. It started for me by just being faithful to give some and pray some, and I kept asking God, like, when do I get to go on one? And God knew exactly what mission trip He was going to send me on and when. And when that time came, it was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. So that's my encouragement.
Hello, my name is Jeremy White, and I am passionate for the cross. And because of that, it reflects into missions here and missions there. I've been on a couple of these other teams, and I prayed a long time ago that I was looking for a spot for my family to just plant our feet so that all my family could go on missions. And that turned out to be Guatemala through Mike and Christy Pinion. And we've been going for over 10 years now. It's been a long time. We do 2 different teams in Guatemala. We just got back a month or 2 ago from Guatemala, and we had a team that did medical missions. If you're a doctor or a nurse or know anybody, we're recruiting to come with us. You can be of all different abilities. We do construction. We do evangelism. Obviously, the whole point of this is to evangelize to people. Because of the cross, we help people, but the ultimate healing is the cross itself. And so we do construction, we do medical missions, we do, what am I missing? VBS, we work with the kids. We have a benevolence team there. We give out shoes. If you've never been in a village in anywhere, U.S. or another country, and watched children or adults that have no shoes, it'll break your heart. And you enter into their home, and they have a dirt floor, they have water that runs off of their roof into a barrel, and that's their drinking water. And some no electricity either. That's what you enter into. Those are the people that we are helping. Because of those people, the children end up getting sick. The children get put into sex slavery. They get put into a lot of things that are not their choice. There is children's homes in Guatemala also, and that's the second trip that we do. We work with a children's home called Casa Alleluia. We've been working there for 10 years. There is, at this time, roughly 250 kids. It goes up to 450 kids. If you can imagine, 450 kids on 19 acres with 32 buildings. Okay, think about what a kid does in your house. There is constantly construction opportunities. There's constantly ministering opportunities. These children are taken off the streets. These children are taken out of homes of drug cartel, of anything that you can imagine, and put into these homes. And that is God's opportunity for the gospel to be proclaimed to these children. And the majority of these kids, fall in love with Jesus. And so we take a team also to Casa Alleluia to help with the children, to play with the children, just to love on the children. But we also do construction projects if it needs to be, and we also help with anything that they do. We also do dorm parenting, or allow the dorms to go out, the parents to leave, because you can imagine it's very difficult. My wife and I have actually been dorm parents, temporary, and you're on call all the time, and it's really rough, to say the least. Let's see, the team that went on the medical missions this past trip, we had, let's see, I had the notes here, and we did 4 clinics. So we were at 4 different churches, and the teams, the people came up to the church and was able to get the medical done on them at each one of them. And we treated 400 patients, and there were 67 salvations during the week that we were there. We passed out shoes. The construction team also helped build 2 new houses for the pastors there. They did the electrical and the plumbing and the painting on each one of those. So there's lots of opportunities in Guatemala. You can write these down. These are the dates that we're going. And the next one for the medical missions, and I say medical missions loosely because you can go even if you're not medical, but we are recruiting for that. It's November 14th through the 22nd. That's the tentative approximate dates, November 14th through the 22nd of 25. Okay? And the Casa Alleluia trip is May 30th through June 8th. May 30th through June 8th. And we will be taking pretty much anybody on the Casa Alleluia. It is a gated community. The kids can't go in or out. So it's a relatively flat surface. You live in the dorms. It is probably the easiest mission trip you could ever go on. If you ever gave God an excuse for not going to a mission trip, you cannot give him an excuse for this. You don't even have to walk to go to Casa Alleluia. I'm serious. And so the other thing that we do is sponsorships. My wife and I help find children to sponsor. We started sponsoring. I went to Casa the first time, and I interacted with the kids, but I went away from that going, my heart is just broken for these children. And I was like, I want to be a part of their life far deeper than just coming on a mission trip, right? And at the time I was doing a compassion child, and I'm like, this compassion child I've never met, right? I've never known. And so the next trip, we went back just like 4 months later, and we went back to Casa. And I knew instantly when I seen a little girl, and I was like, that's it. She's the one. And she had a sister, so we took on that one too. And I'm telling you, she was 6 years old. That was 11 years ago now. Last year, if you know what quinceanera is, it's when they turn 15. It's like as big as a wedding. It's very precious. It's very, it's just like the most intimate time of a girl. And I got to walk her down the aisle for her quinceanera as her father. You can do that. I adopted a child, many of you know, her name's Joy, and I adopted now 7 kids in Guatemala, and I didn't take any of them home. So I get to take them presents. I get to give them birthday presents. I get to write them letters. I get to be their dad from a distance, and they call me Papa when I go see them. I challenge each of you to prayerfully consider, after this, my wife and I will be in the coffee shop, and you can come see us. And we've got sponsor kids literally with their picture and everything. And if you don't go, you can send gifts with us, or we'll work out something. But I really encourage you to come to the trip. Come to Casa Alleluia. Come to the medical missions. You get out into the field. You will get into the field because one of the things we do is we work with a guy named Hilmar, and he has all kinds of ministry opportunities. We install stoves. We install water filters. We pass out Bibles in the village for at least one day of our trip. So you'll get to see the village. You'll get to interact with that. Missions should be in your mind at all times. Whether you're here, at work. I'm not passionate for missions because missions exist. I'm passionate because Christ saved me, and I want to extend that salvation to others. And my heart is broken for the lost. My heart is broken for the children that have no parents. And we want to give everybody a father who loves them dearly.
I wanted to give you the opportunity to hear from this panel, because one of the challenges that we have at Evergreen is there are such incredible stories of the working of the Spirit of God. We really see in Evergreen an unfolding of the book of Acts in some sense. And it's difficult to get the stories to our people. You see the flags hanging in the auditorium, and we take those flags down every January and start fresh. They're always the flags that represent people on the ground in those countries in that calendar year. But over the 25 years as a church, I don't know the exact number, but I know it's north of 90 nations that we've done work in. And even what you've seen here, Justin's just been to Mongolia. So we've got work on this stage represented in the Mongolian language. In Latvia, they speak Latvian and Russian. The Riverbend community works primarily in Spanish. Brazil, they speak Portuguese. In Guatemala, it's Spanish. Griselda mentioned that we now have a Spanish-speaking Sunday school class on our campus on Sunday mornings. What you may not know that's also not represented here is we also have a Mandarin Chinese church that meets on our campus on Sundays. Now, my part, obviously, I've just gotten back from South Korea. What I did is not a classic mission trip, but it's a movement of the Spirit of God that generates a heartbeat for missions. The Lausanne movement began 50 years ago. The first Lausanne meeting was in 1974, and it was essentially a call to the global church, a call that was issued by John R.W. Stott, who was an Anglican, a British Anglican, and Billy Graham, obviously an American Baptist, and they put out the call to meet in Lausanne, Switzerland. That first meeting, there were people like Francis Schaeffer there, other significant leaders within the global evangelical movement. And Lausanne has, out of that initial meeting 50 years ago, it has become a movement that has played a dramatic and foundational role in the mobilization of the church and the acceleration of the gospel over the last couple of generations. That first Lausanne meeting in Switzerland in 1974, there were calls globally, there were calls for a moratorium on missions, because the idea that had taken hold in the churches was that the gospel was available enough, and that sending people across the ocean to cultures not their own was no longer the most effective way to try and carry out the Great Commission. Ralph Winter, an American missiologist, gave a keynote speech at that first Lausanne movement where he actually introduced the concept of unreached people groups. And it was out of the first Lausanne Congress that the church recaptured a sense of responsibility for people who had never heard the gospel. From 1974, the next Congress was held in Manila in the Philippines in 1989. From that Congress, we developed the concept of the 1040 window, where the majority of unreached people groups remaining in the world could be found. Lausanne has been foundational in developing missionary strategies to advance the gospel. From the Manila meeting in 1989, then in 2010, the third Lausanne Congress was in Cape Town, South Africa. And this one that I've just returned from, the fourth Lausanne Congress, in Seoul, South Korea. They only happen about every 15 to 20 years, but they are tremendously influential. Let me give you an example. The material that we had to work with was a document that really compiled research over the last several years. I don't know, four or 5 years. And I'm looking this way. If you don't know Justin Shell, you need to know Justin. Justin is a member of Evergreen. He works for the Lausanne movement. He's particularly responsible for the opportunity that God gave me to be a part of this. We let him hang around with our staff, and he serves alongside us because he's literally the only Lausanne employee in this time zone. So when he gets really tired of making Zoom calls, he comes and hangs out with us. But he's a great resource, and he's really been instrumental in allowing me to have the invitation to be a part of this. But several years of research came to us as delegates. By the way, this Congress had 5,000 attendees from 202 countries, and it was supported in 7 different languages. I've talked about the global church. I've preached about the global church, but honestly, I've been on mission trips all over the world. But to see the global church come together in one place was truly a remarkable experience. This body of research, it was entitled The State of the Great Commission. It's a document of about 536 pages of just massive research, where the gospel is at work, the state of churches nation by nation around the world. it's a massive document that becomes the data that we use to then do the work of the Congress. This is not a convention where you go and sit and just listen for 8 days. There are work groups that Lazon identified 40 gaps. That is areas, gaps in our ability to carry out the Great Commission. 40 gaps that needed to be addressed. And out of those 40 gaps, they prioritized the top 25. And then out of these 5,000 delegates, we assembled 25 gap working groups. And it was daily time spent, hours at a time, dealing with the particular gap or need in the global church that your work group was faced with. And because of the way God has opened up technology, we would meet for several hours, and we would engage, and we would debate, and we would talk, and we would brainstorm, and we would put it all together. We'd take notes. We would upload the notes every night, and then all of the different tables, all the different teams within our work group, all the material would be uploaded. The leadership would then use AI to consolidate it into a single report. The next day we would come back and we would tackle the same problem but from a different angle, and we would brainstorm and strategize and think, and we would take notes, we'd upload those notes. AI would then consolidate all the working notes from all the different tables. And you do that over the course of about 12 hours of work with about 20 different teams working within each of 25 working groups. And what will be the result is a document with our best strategic thinking, drawing from leaders from every continent on the earth, our best strategic thinking about how to close these gaps. And I expect the Fourth Lausanne Congress to do precisely what the first three did, which is provide foundational strategic direction as the church moves forward over the course of the next generation. My work group was the work group on secularization. And so our particular gap was that my group dealt with was, how do we take the gospel to an increasingly secular society? There were other work groups that covered virtually any strategic problem that you can imagine. That's the one that I was assigned, and it was a lot of mentally weighty work. I mean, this was not a vacation. In fact, somebody said, "Did you get a chance to go around and see Seoul?" No, I saw the bus route between the convention center and my hotel. That's what I saw, because I worked the whole time. But besides the working groups, there was the inspiration of reports. Each day of the Lausanne Congress is given a particular theme. So, for example, one day the theme was taking the gospel to the cities. Statistics tell us that by something like 2036, 68% of all the human beings on the planet, essentially 7 out of every 10 people on the earth, will live together in major cities. Well, that means that the day of evangelization, that means sending a bush pilot into the Amazonian rainforest, that's probably not the way we're moving in the future. They're coming to us in cities that will now number 18, 20, 25 million people in a city. And so our carrying out the Great Commission has to adapt to that new reality. So one day was all about evangelizing the cities in the next generation. Another day was about the persecuted church. And honestly, I sort of dreaded that day, because I thought, this is just going to be gut-wrenching. And it was, in the sense that you hear stories that will tear your heart out. But we didn't hear one single story of a church that was failing. They were all stories of victory. At my table, we were assigned tables, and at my table that I did the plenary sessions, the big sessions together, at my table there was an Australian woman who was an online chaplain to more than 3,000 Christians who serve in different roles in the British government in the United Kingdom, ministering to politicians. There was a 20-something Chinese girl who does university ministry with Chinese students who are studying in Great Britain. There was an Assemblies of God church planter who was born in South India but now ministers in New Delhi, a city of 15 million people, planting churches. There was a lady at my table that was a part of a home church network in the Caribbean that planted churches and trained pastors on 4 different Caribbean islands. And the last person at my table was a man, his name was Job. His last name was much too complicated for me to pronounce. He is the bishop of an evangelical denomination of churches in central Nigeria. And I learned from him that a great majority of the Christian martyrs of the last 100 years have been centered in Nigeria. In fact, a friend of his had been murdered in his pulpit the Sunday before Job joined us at Lausanne in Seoul. And I said, I'm so sorry. How are you doing with that? And he said, we have more than 20,000 missionaries in our denomination. They're spread across Nigeria, and they're reaching Nigerians in other African nations. And he said, every time a Christian dies, a martyr's death in Nigeria, we can count on 10 new church planters stepping up. Because what Tertullian told us 1,500 years ago is true. The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. One day was devoted to lessons for the global church from Korean Christianity. You might not realize that Christianity didn't come into Korea until the 1880s with American missionaries, a Methodist missionary and a Presbyterian missionary. It was in 1907 at the Pyongyang revival that Christianity really broke out. What's interesting about that is Pyongyang is now the capital of North Korea. The church in Korea is marked by prayer and evangelism to the point that you may not realize the Korean church is the number 2 missionary sending nation on the earth after the United States. There are Korean missionaries on every continent. And it'll break your heart to see them, to hear them talk about North Korea, because the way they worded it, North Korea is both our nearest mission field and our farthest mission field, because the darkness in North Korea is so devastating. But they know from the testimony of refugees that escaped North Korea. By the way, every South Korean church has a ministry. When a family escapes from North Korea, it's the Christian churches that take them in, find them jobs, provide them food, get them housing. They set them up to be free. The testimony of refugees coming out of North Korea tells us that there are still somewhere between 70 and 100,000 believers in North Korea, the number 1 persecuting nation on the earth today. They are deep underground, but they are meeting and they are sharing and they are living faithfully. And to just be a part of this and to see the global church and really the North American aspect of this was not dominant. And pretty much everywhere I've ever gone, even if we drew from a lot of nations, the sort of the North American / European contingent was always sort of in charge. And this had such a flavor of heaven to it. And the question then becomes, okay, God has already put it in our DNA, as you see represented here, to do missions, to take the Great Commission seriously. But I found myself not patting myself on the back, but saying, okay, Lord, everything that we've done for 25 years has led us to this moment. Now what? And that's the teaser, because I'm going to be sharing that over coming weeks on Sundays as more of the stories of what happened at the Lausanne 4th World Congress. As that plays out, the things that I believe God has put on my heart to give as direction for Evergreen. But I will say this, this panel, you should view this as just a little charcuterie board, a little small smorgasbord, because I think what God has for us, well, you ain't seen nothing yet. Justin.
All right. Well, I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of missionaries and different sending agencies and just ministries over the 3 years that I've been here on staff. But 2 years ago, I had a couple come into my office and tell me about Mongolia. The meeting was scheduled for an hour, but I held them hostage for 3. Everything they told me absolutely captivated my imagination, and just the structure of the ministry that God's been using there in Mongolia through their serving in the country for over 20 years. It blew me away, and I said, I got to go see this. So 2 years later, the Hildebrands and my brother and myself hopped on a 30-hour flight to Mongolia and got to know this country that I'm sure you're all geography buffs, but you got Russia, Mongolia, China. And so after the fall of the Soviet Union in the early 90s, Mongolia opened up as a democratic country. And so in came the missionaries, and in came these different organizations to spread the gospel. We partnered with an organization it's an NGO called VetNet. And Richard and Mary Ballinger are the people that came to meet with me. And they are just an amazing couple that I consider, I mean, we're all family, right? But I mean, they're like that kind of family to me. They're precious. And they've been a part of that ministry there for over 20 years. And she was a veterinarian by trade, and her husband, Richard, was the director of the airport here in Tulsa, and they left everything after a short-term trip, a 2-week trip over there to Mongolia. And so what they told me was that this country that is the 18th largest country in the world, mass-wise, has a population of 3.3 million people, which is smaller than 3.8 million Los Angeles population, but that over 50% live in the capital city of Ulaanbaatar, and then the rest are all nomadic herders out in the countryside. And so the people that live outside of the city environment, they live in these little homes, little circular homes. You'll see it on one of the pictures, and they're called gers. And they pick up shop and move to the next pasture where their sheep can find grass, and that's the way they live. And so we got to jump in a Russian van. We had a nice dinner with Mary and Richard the first day, And we woke up all jet lagged and hopped in a Russian van and took off for really the adventure of my lifetime. I can honestly tell you this trip was absolutely incredible for me. Didn't get a shower for a week and a half, so that was not something that I was used to. But we took off for the countryside, and we went through 6 different counties, and each one of these counties that we would stop at, the people are just they're the most beautiful people I think I've ever met. And I've been to a lot of countries and cultures. I had not been to Asia yet, so this was my first experience with that. But the second you walk in their home, they come straight to you with a bowl of something. And they're laughing because that bowl of something can be very interesting. Sometimes it's a piece of candy which you are praying for. Other times it's some cheese curds that have no expiration date. Or it could be a bowl of mare's milk. You could also get a bowl of this butter stuff that I don't even know. Yeah, I don't know what it's called. But they are coming to offer you something right away. And they have their customs where you receive with your right hand. Being left-handed, that was fun for me, to remind myself to use that right hand. But they give, and they give, and they give. And when they receive, it was something that I just found absolutely beautiful, because we would give American candy or lotion to the lady in the home, but they would receive with their head bowed and their 2 hands out like this. And it was just, it was precious the way that the people were, and just the fact that they started the engagement as you come in with a gift. As we shared the gospel, it was easy to refer back to, you remember sharing that free gift as we came in? That's what Jesus offers, and all you have to do is receive. The people were extremely open to the gospel. We saw, or at least witnessed, 20 plus decisions for Christ. We went home to home, and what the mission was is called Gift of Love. And we would go into the homes of people that some of the local governing officials had decided were people that were in need, that were struggling financially. And so we'd go into the homes, and VetNet would provide, they had funding to provide these families in need with sheep. And they would give them 3 sheep per family, 1 sheep to eat right now, because they were in that much of a need, and the other 2 were to start their own herd. But the thankfulness and the excitement, and just going into the home, they had this paperwork that they'd have to fill out, and I was like, why do they got to fill out paperwork for these sheep? And really, it was just a reason to go in and share the gospel and connect with them, and then later they'd have to come back and get their sheep, right? Like that was the little formality early, and then they come back to get their sheep later on that evening, and then we'd have, one of us would share the gospel again. And so they're hearing the gospel multiple times. And it was, their hearts were ready. And what I came to find out later was that the reason it was so easy, and the reason that their hearts were so receptive to the gospel, was someone had already blazed that trail. Right? Like I was like, and Richard, at the end of the trip, he actually said to me, he goes, well, you did the easy part. You just showed up for the gift of love. And I was like, excuse me, I didn't have a shower. I ate a bunch of stuff I've never even seen on a menu anywhere. And he said, no, Claima County, which is, they send their veterinarians out multiple times a year they've been in over 134 different counties in Mongolia. Now there's over 300 counties. Their goal is to eventually get into every single one of those counties, which that's what captivated my heart. I mean, Richard and Mary won't stop until they've been in every county in Mongolia. Over 300 counties. They've been in every state. There's 22 states. They've got vets there in every state. They've got teachers in every state. But that Klamath County piece is they send teachers, they send veterinarians to these counties, and they plug into the school. They don't share the gospel then. It's a crock pot ministry. They're going to connect with all these different teachers and schools and government officials, and they're going to teach them English. They're going to teach them just different health management, and then these teams come in behind that after they've developed all these relationships, and that's when these churches just start. The Lord starts churches. And so we got to go to 6 different counties. 4 of the 6 already had churches existing. And when I say churches, it was in one of the GERs, and there were 7 to 15 people that were there, but they loved the Lord. And God is slowly increasing there in these towns. But the 2 that we went in that did not have churches, it was heartbreaking because there were decisions, and you leave that town and you're like, what's going to happen to them? So being a part of this gift of love, watching these families, you'll see some of the sheep on the screen, but like watching little kids get so excited about a sheep they're going to take home as they throw 3 of them in the back of a Toyota Prius, it's just their lifestyle. It's what they do. And it was truly, I felt guilty. I mean, the conditions were different than anything I've ever, but as I'm driving from county to county, we were on these roads in this Russian van that it's built to be able to be fixed for any problems that it has, but it's not built for comfort, right? Like I needed a helmet in the back seat. But 4 hours of looking at the most beautiful countryside, it even snowed. I remember about 4 days in, I said, the only way this could get any better is if there was a little snow, see Mongolia in the snow, and we got a little bit of snow. And I felt guilty being on this trip because it filled me up so much to see these beautiful people, this beautiful landscape, and just looking at this mission that God's given this amazing vision for something so big. And I'm just going, what if we did that here? What if we went into every county? What if we went into every state? Like that's a big goal, but it was incredible. And got to meet, just in passing, a man named Tom Jurgens, and he's been there over 20 times. And it was also a super delight getting to be with the Hildebrands. They went a separate direction, but in doing the same stuff, just loving people and connecting with the schools. But this Tom Jurgens, we literally stopped on the side of the road. They were going a different way, and we were going this way, and they called him, and we hop out, and this guy has come to Mongolia over 20 times. He goes, there's nowhere else I want to be. And he told me something that I just thought was so awesome. He started talking about the sheep, and he said, whoa, that's not a sheep. It's a kingdom unit. And he said, and when you go buy a cup of coffee for someone, it's not $5, it's 5 kingdom units. And I was like, that's a beautiful way to see that. And so there's so much more, so many, some of we limited it to 6 pictures, but the country is beautiful. There's going to be another team that will go next year, another small team. But I want to tell you, they have people coming down all the time, veterinarians. If you're a teacher, like I can help you get set up to go down there. They'll pick you up at the airport. They'll take great care of you. You might throw some protein bars or something in your bag, like to get through. But the other thing is, we're going to have opportunities for Evergreen to claim a county. And this Christmas, we've done the angel tree. There's going to be 2 things that we're going to offer. We're going to have a sheep tree. Okay, you can get presents for kids. They're going to be ornaments, a sheep ornament. So we're going to try to see if we can give away 60 sheep. And then we're also going to get 60 county tickets. And that will help send teachers and veterinarians to a new county that has not been reached yet with the gospel. And that will support their transportation, their living. They live there. They get to know that everyone in the town. They set up camp for 2 months, like multiple times a year. And they start engaging the people, building relationships. And that's when stuff starts happening, when we build those relationships. And that's what we've seen at Riverbend. That's what we've seen at every step of the way, is building these relationships, because people really don't care what you know until they know that you care. It's true. And so I'm excited. I really didn't know what to expect. I usually try to have some kind of expectation, but I would have been blown away no matter what. It was incredible. And if you want to know more about it, just let me know. But Evergreen has a huge opportunity here to plug in with new ground for the kingdom. So
It's interesting because the fact that we do all of these things simultaneously, none of them detract from any of the other things that we do. It's like having that second child and then that third child and maybe a fourth child, and you discover that you don't have to divvy up the amount of love. The love expands to meet the need. And I'm excited that God is going to give us the opportunity to do all of these kinds of things in all of these different places simultaneously, because my experience is people go back to the same place over and over and over again because it captures their heart. And so when we start a brand new partnership in a brand new nation, it's just an opportunity for a whole new group of people to have their hearts captured, and they'll go do that. We're not going to have to take away from anything else that we're doing to do Mongolia or anything else God puts on our hearts. So that's a fascinating reality of all of this. Are we finished? Okay, I'm going to ask Justin, would you come and just say a closing prayer for us tonight, just in light of kind of this report of just a flavoring of what God is doing in missions at Evergreen.
Let's pray. May God be gracious to us and bless us, and cause His face to shine upon us, so that your ways may be known on the earth, your saving power among all peoples. Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you. Let the nations be glad and sing for joy. Lord, we echo these prayers from your word. We know it's your will. We know it's your heart. We say, Lord, bless us that the ends of the earth might know you. Use us that men and women would become sons and daughters of King Jesus. Enlarge our tents. Enlarge our hearts. Lord, you are worthy. You are worthy. You are worthy. And so we pray that every member of Evergreen would find their role in the Great Commission locally and globally. Whether we're in Tulsa or Timbuktu, Lord, would you use us so that the throne room of heaven looks different? As we look into it in Revelation 7:9, and we see a great multitude that no one could count from every tribe, language, people, and nation. Lord, let us be a part of that. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.